What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikiPikaPapa, and today we're looking at something that I think is really, really cool. Now, you all know that I love to collect data. I love to warehouse it, and I love to track it over time, and that time aspect is really important to me. I like to track some data points month over month. I like to track some quarterly, some every half year, and some overall for every single year, and that is where we are at. My gosh, I can't believe it. Half the year is behind us, so I have been doing some mid-year analysis on some of these awesome Pokemon cards that have been hot and some that have been falling a little bit to the side, right? On Monday, we did a video. We talked about winners and losers from the first half of the year, and let's be honest, none of them are losers because we're collecting Pokemon cards, and how freaking cool and awesome is that? And we also know that this hobby can be very cyclical. Things can be in favor today, can very quickly fall out of favor tomorrow, and things that are out of favor today can swing back into favor in the future. So at the end of the day, we're collecting awesome stuff, and it's a ton of fun. But that doesn't mean that we can't look at some of the recent price changes, and that's what we're doing today. So as I was doing my mid-year analysis, of course I was looking at Sword and Shield because Sword and Shield has had a heck of a first half of 2024, and that led me to look at some of the alt art cards. So as I said, I warehouse a ton of data, and on the 15th of every single month, I warehouse the top 20 singles card prices from every single set in the Sword and Shield era, the Sun and Moon era, the XY era, now the Scarlet and Violet era. And for Sword and Shield and Sun and Moon, I do a month-over-month view for you all because I think that's the best way for us to keep a finger on the pulse of what's going on. So when I'm doing this mid-year analysis, guess what? I go back to January because I pull the data on about the 15th of every single month. So I look at the prices of these awesome cards in the Sword and Shield era on January 15th, and then I look at the prices on June 15th. That's a full, even 6-month comparison, and I said, hey, listen, what cards have moved the most? Let's see what cards have had the biggest price gains over that 6-month period. Now, in this video, because the 15th was 2 weeks ago, I'm going to have the most updated price chart for you, and I'm also going to have the new price down below because we all know that in 2 weeks, things can, will, and do move very fast in the Pokemon market, and we're already seeing a lot of these cards come down in price, which you'll see throughout the course of this video. But some interesting takeaways. So as I said, these prices started on January 15th and they concluded on June 15th. I'll have the most updated prices in there as well. So I'm looking at the biggest percent gains from the Sword and Shield block over the first half of this year. So as you can see, I've got 10 cards up there. I blacked out the name, but you can see the sets that they can come from. You see the January price, the June price, and my gosh, almost all of them are up 100% over that 6-month time period, which is absolutely insane. Now, we also had some cards that had some pretty aggressive price jumps, but I wanted to make sure that they had a starting price point of $20 because I figured that that was a decent quote-unquote type of collecting and investing price point back in January, so we started at 20 bucks. So the other thing that I thought was really interesting is we all expected Evolving Skies to have a strong showing on this list, which of course it did, but it was interesting to see that 2 of the cards on here actually come from Battle Styles, right? A set that not a lot of people are high on, and it certainly isn't the most expensive booster box out there, but I thought that was a really cool takeaway. And the other thing is, look, I've got the 3 biggest and the baddest, at least in my mind, alt arts from the Sword and Shield era, the Giratina, the Gengar, and the Umbreon, and guess what? None of them were the biggest movers over the first 6 months. They had the highest starting off point. I think the hype for them was already through the roof, so it makes sense, but it was really cool takeaway for me to understand that, hey, from my opinion, the 3 biggest and the baddest were not the 3 biggest gainers over the first 6 months, which just goes to show you that if you can find opportunity, if you can find some of these underloved cards, some of these undervalued cards out there in the market, you got a big chance to make some big money. So with that being said, let's get into these top 10 cards because there's a ton of stuff to look at, and we're going to have a ton of fun. The very first one is from Battle Styles, right? And this is the Implosion right here card. And you will see that on January 15th, this card started off at $22.89. And then in the middle of last month, it came in at $44.92. A huge, huge jump of 96%. Now, we're starting to see this card come back down already, right? It is already down to $37.71. This could be one of the cards that was caught up in the alt art hype, right? Like, this is certainly not a big name Pokemon. Battle Styles, as I said earlier, certainly isn't one of the biggest and baddest sets from the Sword and Shield era, and I do think there was a period of time there, you know, over the last couple months where anything that had alt art attached to it, people were buying just kind of blindly, right? It didn't matter what the name on the card was, it didn't matter how great the art was, although all arts are pretty awesome, but I think people were just snagging them left and right because they felt like, hey, these are the biggest and the baddest and we want to snag it, and I think we saw stuff like this where this card ended up popping up pretty high, and now we're going to start to see it normalize a little bit. But this one comes in at number 10. Coming in at number 9, the Sylveon from Evolving Skies. And this is a card, and this is a set that is just absolutely stunning, right? I love everything about this card. We will talk about Evolving Skies a lot on this video, so I'm not going to get too far into it. But again, another card, it started off at $135 back in January, middle of this month, last month, excuse me. It was up to $267. Now, it has come down, but compared to some of the other cards we're going to look at on this video, it's actually retaining a decent amount of its value. It is down to about $250, only a $17 drop on a $267 card, so not a big drop from a percentage standpoint. And you'll see when you look at the graph right there, it's starting to flatten out a little bit. I do think that cards from Evolving Skies have the best downside protection simply because Evolving Skies is the biggest and the baddest set from the whole Sword and Shield era. So just with that being what it is, I think the fact that booster boxes are so expensive, I think that the cards that have spiked in Evolving Skies have a bit more protection than some of the other ones. But we'll have to see how the other ones shake out because there's some awesome pieces of artwork in this video. So the next one right here we're looking at, again, is the Sleepy T-Tar from Battle Styles. And if you've been watching this channel at all, you know I am a huge fan of this card. I've been talking about this card for a long time, and I was very, very happy to see it pop up all the way to $190. Back in January, it was sitting at $94, a 101% gain over that 6-month period. Now, guess what? It's come down a little bit, but again, not a ton, right? This is the big chase card from the Battle Style set. I do think that the cards that are at the very top, those big chase cards, the #1 cards from all of these set, again, have the best downside protection. So this card right here, awesome artwork. Love this Sleepy T-Tar right here. Again, got all the way up to $190. As we sit today, it's down to about $180, so not a big drop. And you'll see the graph is really flattening out a little bit. It doesn't seem like that graph is dropping off a cliff. So super excited to see this card on here. And again, man, back in January for a sub $100 card from a big chase card from a set that does have alt arts like Battle Styles. When you think back on that, it was kind of shooting fish in a barrel, right? This was an easy card to pick up. This was almost a no-brainer. Although, as I said, that guess who didn't have this card picked up? That would be me, even though I was so bullish on it. But anyways, super cool card, super great price appreciation, and really excited to see how this can hold on, you know, for the next 3 to 4 months. Now, the next card right here, again, another one from Evolving Skies, the Dragonite V right here. Again, look at that price graph. What's really cool to me is obviously there's a big spike in price, but you're seeing it hold on. You're seeing it flatten out. Again, when we look at some of these cards from some of the other sets outside of Evolving Skies, you see that the price spiked and then started to come back down. Another card that was right in the sub $100 range, coming in at about $95 in January, all the way up to $193 in the middle of last month with a 104% gain over 6 months. Just absolutely insane numbers right there. And again, yes, it's down versus that high of $193, but it's only down $10, right? We all understand, we all know for the market to be healthy and for the market to make sense, these cards had to come down off those highs a little bit. So really excited to see that this card is holding on and is holding that flat pattern right there at about $190. Super exciting. Super cool card too. Love this card. Speaking of cool cards, speaking of Evolving Skies, as if we're not beating a dead horse enough, you got the Leafeon VMAX alt art right here. Another card, and this one, believe it or not, it is actually flat, okay? So it started at $167 back in January, popped all the way up to $346 in the middle of last month, and it is, I mean, we're calling it flat. Yeah, it's down about 80 cents, but that is as close to flat as you're gonna get when you're talking about a $345 card. So again, another great testament to when the biggest and the baddest set is out there. These cards just have the ability to hold on to their value. It's certainly a big learning for me for what's going to happen in Scarlet and Violet, because even though I don't think it's happened yet, there is going to be a big bad set where we're going to have 5 or 6 cards that are going to be $100 plus cards. I can just feel it in my bones. It's coming. I don't know when, I don't know how, I don't know where, but it is coming. And when that happens, man, it will be really, really smart for us to go ahead and snag some of these cards earlier on. It might take a while for these prices to actually pop in value, but again, the downside risk is so minimal whenever we find that big bad set. So a great example right here of a card that not only popped up, but has actually been able to hold on to it when the broader alt art market is starting to come back down a little bit. Love this Leafeon card right here. Next one, keeping with Evolving Skies, we got the Umbreon V card right here. Another really cool card. Now you'll see the graph. This one is starting to slowly work its way down, but it certainly is not in free fall by any stretch of the imagination. This card started off at a sub $90 card in January. It was coming in at $87, right? Now it's all the way up to $183.70 in the middle of last month, a 112% gain, but now it's working its its way back down. Again, you're only down $9 on a $183 starting point, so not a big drop at all. Another card I'm going to keep an eye on, and what I think I will do is I think we will look at the same list of cards, these same 10 cards, maybe in 3 months from now, right? You know, as I said earlier in this video, I love to do certain look backs at certain intervals in time, so maybe we'll wait 3 months, come back, see how these cards are doing, and see which ones have been able to hold on, see which ones have kind of let the bottom fall out, and see what kind of learnings we get from there. So really cool to see this Umbreon, again, pop up the way it did and then hold on. And as I've always been saying too, in Evolving Skies, obviously the biggest and the baddest card in there is the Moonbreon, right? So there's some organic lift going on with a lot of Umbreon cards as a whole. So really cool to see this one performing well, and we'll see where it is in the next couple months. Next card right here is the Ray from Evolving Skies. Again, the number 2 card in that set. Now this one, as opposed to the ones that we have seen in the past, is starting to come down, but I think that's because the price got absolutely stupid. I mean, we're talking about this thing was all the way up at $540 in the middle of last month, and in January it was sitting at $245, so a 120% gain over the last 6 months. So it's starting to come back down. A Moonbreon, this is not, right? Like, you can't even compare the two, but it is going to be interesting to see if it's able to hold on, and it will hold on, but how much of the gains will it be able to hold on? So you see on that price graph right there, it's starting to flatten out a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised. We've done tons of data dives and tons of analysis on this channel. We see support lines tend to form at these round numbers. So maybe $450, we're going to see a support line for this Rayquaza form, and it's going to start to flatten out like we've seen some of those other Evolving Skies. So it'd be really, really interesting. And if you've been in the market for a Rayquaza, if you missed it on its way up and you're trying to catch it on the way down, we will be able to keep an eye on this and see if it does start to flatten out at that $450 price point. But I love this card. I was super lucky. My 4-year-old actually pulled this card, and it was really special for us. We sent it off to PSA, got it graded, so we got it in a PSA 10 holder sitting behind me over here. So this card has a lot of sentimental value to me, so I'm really excited to see it performing well. Next card right here is the Machamp from Astral Radiance, and I am totally guilty of sleeping on Astral Radiance. I think Astral Radiance is a fantastic set. In hindsight, everything's 2020, and I totally missed on how cool this set is. When we do these month-over-month videos, we talk about how Astral Radiance has more cards over $10 than even a big set like Lost Origin. So Astral Radiance certainly has a lot of momentum and a lot of hype right now, and a lot of really cool cards to support that. So the Machamp right here, again, sub $85. This was about $84 back in January, popped all the way up to $191, up 127%, and now it's starting to come back down a little bit. It's at $174. Again, another card that just you're not seeing the bottom fall out. And when you think about this, this is the chase card for Astral Radiance. Those chase cards, they just perform fundamentally different than a lot of the lower level cards, because this is the biggest and the baddest. This is driving a ton of interest in that Astral Radiance set. So very excited to see this card, and I'll be interested to see where it starts to flatten out at, but this card is absolute fire, and to think that you could have picked it up for under $85 6 short months ago is absolutely crazy. Next card right here, the Blazin from Chilling Reign, another card that I think is absolutely stunning. All of these cards are, right? Like, these are alt art, Sword and Shield era. This is why so many of us love the Sword and Shield era, and why so many of us are so incredibly bullish on the long-term prospects of Sword and Shield. The art is awesome, the cards are awesome, the Pokemon are awesome. Like, it is hard to go wrong here. Now, this card had one of the most aggressive price jumps, right? In January, it was going for $163, which by no means is a cheap card. Like, everybody was in love with this card all the way back then. Chilling Reign, from a booster box perspective, was already on fire. Like, Chilling Reign is a incredibly strong set. I don't know what I was trying to say there, but Chilling Reign is a wildly strong set, and we have known that for a long time. But to see this card pop up to almost $400 in the middle of last month, almost 139% up over 6 months, is just absolutely out of control Looney Tunes. Now, it is starting to come down a little bit. We're seeing a bit of a more aggressive price drop here, right? It is down to $354 from that high of $390. However, it is the big and bad chase card from Chilling Reign. Chilling Reign, from a sealed perspective, is going absolutely insane. Top to bottom, there are so many awesome cards in Chilling Reign with such high values. It is going to be interesting to see if this Blazin is able to hold on to that. Maybe we'll see it start to normalize at $350. Maybe it'll break below that point and it'll find support somewhere else. All I know is this card is awesome. Chilling Reign is awesome, so it's got a very bright future ahead of it. Next card right here, the Espeon from Fusion Strike. You know how much I love Fusion Strike, and this was actually our biggest gainer for the first half of the year, which is insane, right? This started off at a $120 card. Again, not a cheap price point, not a small jump-off point by any stretch of the imaginations. This isn't even the biggest chase card from the Fusion Strike set. We all know that it's that Gengar alt art, which we showed at the very beginning. However, Espeon doesn't care. It went from a $120 card all the way up to $336. Almost a 181% jump over the span of 6 months. That is absolutely, I mean, it's just not even fathomable how crazy that is. Now, we have seen a strong regression since then. It has come down to $297.51. But again, when you think about that, that's like a $40 drop off of a $336 starting point. And again, it's up 181% from the last 6 months. So I don't care that it's dropped $40. It has still retained a ton of its value. And this is a really, really cool card to keep an eye on. I think this goes ahead and it bolsters the strength of Fusion Strike overall. Obviously, you got the Gengar at the top, then you got a really strong number 2 card right here. So it's going to be interesting. Again, when you look at that price graph, it looks like it's starting to flatten out. So we will see if it's able to kind of find support there at the $300 range. Remember, we talked about it earlier, these big round numbers. It's at $297 right now, so the market might support it at $300. We might see it flatten out. But who knows? I have not gone through anything like this in recent memory where we've seen just a small subset of cards go through such an incredible price growth over such a short amount of time. So as I committed to earlier, I will continue to keep this information. I will continue to warehouse it. We will do a look back in 3 months. We will say which cards held onto the value, which cards had the bottom fall out. We will try and take some learnings from that as we always do, so we can take learnings from the past, apply them to the present, and hopefully give us some opportunities for some big gains in the future. I hope you enjoyed this video. I had a ton of fun. If you did, hit that subscribe button. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up. If you have questions, comments, drop them down below. I appreciate you more than I can say. I hope you have an epic one. I'll talk to you soon. See you later, everybody. Bye.